Ladies and gentlemen, now in today's video, we're going to be having a little bit of a chat about the tier list update for September. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about the introduction of Sunspot and Warlock and a bit about those champions and why they both have received a God tier ranking. We're also going to be talking about some promotions, some demotions as well, and also the big highlight of this month, Variant 3, and some of the champions that have really shone in Variant 3 and had their value solidified. So we're going to cover all of the latest and greatest news in tier list updates, but before we start, I need to give the standard tier list disclaimer that this tier list is a rough guide to what I personally believe are the best and the most valuable champions in Marvel Contest of Champions overall, and it should be used for what it is, a very rough guide to, again, what I believe are some of the best and most valuable characters. In Marvel Contest of Champions, you have so many different modes of gameplay. You've got Alliance Quest, Alliance War, you have Story Quest, Variant, Labyrinth of Legends, Realm of Legends, and all sorts of events and challenges that do come up in this game, along with like 160 odd different characters now, and also thousands of combinations of nodes. So there are so many different variables and factors that determine whether or not a champion is going to be really good for a matchup or a little bit rubbish for a matchup. So yeah, complicated game is complicated. Use this for what it is, a rough guide. That is the point, lads. But anyway, let's get into today's tier list update. So we've got the two brand new champions, Sunspot and also Warlock, both going into the God tier with no additional icons. And when it does come to this tier list ranking as well, I do have 5 additional icons. The star indicates that a champion has a large benefit from awakened ability. The kind of muscle icon indicates that they have a large benefit from a high signature level. The kind of love emoji there indicates that they have a large benefit from synergies. The up arrow indicates that that champion kind of needs fights to ramp up if you really want to see a solid performance. And the person kind of doing a handstand cartwheel there indicates that there is a very high level of skill required to kind of play and master that champion. So use those as well, you know, for what they are, a bit of a rough guide to looking into a little bit more about that champion there. But Sunspot and Warlock have absolutely no icons. So one thing that I really like about both of these characters, and I've got both of them at rank 5, is they're champions that you can just use on their own. They don't need their awakened abilities, they don't need team synergies, they don't need like a tremendous amount of practice. Maybe Sunspot's, you know, he takes a few fights to get used to and you need to learn his playstyle a little bit, but he's quite straightforward to play once you know how. But what I really love is that they are two brand new champions that you can just get from a crystal and you can be really excited about. You don't need to be like, oh, that champion's going to be good when I get the awakened ability, or that champion's going to be really good when I get this other champion as well. You can just get those champions from a crystal and hey, they are both really, really great characters. Now, when it comes to Sunspot, the reason I've given him a God tier ranking, and to tell you a bit about the character as well, is his damage output is just insane. This man has some ridiculous levels of burst damage, but even once you get into kind of a few combos, a few special ones, this guy hits really, really hard. He's very quick at finishing a lot of fights there. He also has Incinerate immunity, and if he does get an Incinerate applied to him, he converts it into solar charges, which he can use to get even more damage output. So it's kind of a better form of Incinerate immunity. It's a bit like Incinerate absorption there. Also, if you get a parry on Sunspot, while the opponent is incinerated, it's always going to be a perfect parry. So you take 0 damage from it, and it lasts for the entire duration of the attack. So if you're fighting stun immune or parrying a special attack, so you're not actually stunning the opponent and you go for the parry anyway, you still get the perfect block for the entire duration of the combo. So this has some really, really good value in a lot of different matchups there, but is yeah, something that definitely a skilled player, especially when it comes to parrying special attacks, can really take advantage of, because stuff like War Machine Special 1, Punisher 99's 2099 special attacks as well are very annoying special attacks to evade, but if you can get the parry right, you can take 0 damage from them. So I think there's a lot of interesting uses for that kind of perfect block mechanic there. Sunspot also has access to a lot of Incinerate, so this gives them a really good synergy with the Despair Mastery for scenarios where the opponent is going to be regenerating a fair bit. He also is very good against shrug-off champions such as Agent, Venom, Crossbones, or Kingpin, because if you apply an Incinerate and they shrug it off, you instantly gain back a solar charge and also a little bit of power as well. So it instantly just gives you your solar charges back, and kind of Sunspot's playstyle and rotation is all about applying Incinerates to the opponent and then using the heavy attack and charging that up to purify them to get more power and more solar charges back. So yeah, that's the playstyle, and shrug-off champions, man, they just do it for him. So it's a really good time there. Also with his unique playstyle and rotation, it does give the opponent minimal power, so this can be quite useful in certain matchups and scenarios where you don't really want to give your opponent that much power. However, he's far from a power control champion there. It's just a fairly noteworthy point, at least in my opinion. And finally, Sunspot is a very good champion. For Alliance Quest Map 7, there are a lot of paths that feature the no diss track where you can only damage the opponent if you have 3 or more debuffs on them, and because you're applying so many Incinerates, it's really easy to get around this node. Also, Pleasure to Burn requires an Incinerate on the opponent to deal like regular damage, or else you have a 90% damage penalty. So yeah, Sunspot, you've pretty much always got an Incinerate active, so this is, you know, a really good option for Pleasure to Burn nodes. And finally, you've got the Map 7 Freezer Burn nodes. These are also in a little bit of Act 6 Chapter 2, but it's essentially like a biohazard node, but instead of bleeding, you incinerate. So Sunspot, he can just absorb that incinerate and convert it into even more damage there. So he's really good for those. But that's pretty much it for Sunspot, man. I think he's a solid god tier champion. I kind of rank him very similar to Havoc in terms of his damage output and performance, but I think both of the champions, they have their pros and cons depending on the matchup and exactly what's going on. But I think overall, man, Sunspot, he's really fun to play, does a ton of damage, has some really good base utility, could have a little bit more utility, certainly behind a lot of what I would consider the beyond god tier mutants, but I still think anybody that gets like a 5 or 6 star Sunspot is going to be pretty happy to see the champion pop up in their crystal there. And then next up we have Warlock. Now Warlock, there is a lot to cover, man. This man is an absolute arsenal of utility. So he is a bleed, poison, frostbite, and also cold snap immune champion. The very base. He also has a passive armor up buff, so this allows him to counter Havoc and be immune to the plasma charges. He also does have a passive heal block via his virus infection. The drains also power on healing as well, and also if you have him awakened, deals a little bit of degeneration damage, but again, that's a fairly nice ability to have and not essential or required. He also, on the viruses, has offensive ability accuracy reduction, so this can shut down abilities that would trigger when the opponents fire them off. So for example, Juggernaut's Unstoppable triggers on his special attacks, so if you're playing very aggressively with Warlock, you can actually shut down his Unstoppable. So there are a lot of like very interesting interactions with that one, man, but it can be very useful for the right matchup there. As well as that, Warlock is having a great time in some of the variant content. He's actually tagged as an extra large champion for variant 2, so it makes him viable for that, and also he's a tech champion for variant 3 as well, and very good for that really annoying rogue matchup because he does have a passive heal block that doesn't count as a debuff there, so you get full duration on that one. He is the solution, at least in my opinion, to at least, and this is the minimum, of 50% of the problem fights across Act 5, Act 6, and all of the variants as well, because Warlock, he just has so much core utility that allows him to counter a lot of the fights that people usually get stuck at. Like, he is just so crazy good. He's such a versatile champion. There's so much in his kit that just allows him to get around all of these really annoying matchups that people get stuck at in content, man. So I think that's something really important to bear in mind there. He also, on a special one, has a very small shock and a 25% power drain per virus or infection that you have on the opponent. He's got an armor break on the special too. He's got a very small heal based on the amount of infections or viruses on the opponent, and also 100% power burn over 5.5 seconds on special 3, so you know you've got a little bit of power control there with Warlock. He also has a bleed on his heavy attack for damage and also utility against matchups like Human Torch, Invisible Woman, and Thing, and also bleed vulnerability nodes, which you see a fair bit of in variant 2, so you can get a lot more damage output from Warlock in those fights. His heavy attack is also quick enough to pull off a parry medium heavy against stunnable evade champions. So in variant, you have Spider-Man, also Spider-Gwens and Nightcrawlers, so you can just get around those matchups just by parry medium heavy, because this heavy attack is very quick. It's a singular hit and deals a lot of damage and also has a bleed on it, so that's a really good little interaction there. And also, if you do fail a special attack evade with Warlock, as long as you have his armor up buff active, his passive one, and it's not been armor broken, then that special attack cannot crit, meaning that if you do fail, you're likely to take like substantially less damage than you would on an average champion. So, you know, it's a little bit more of a safety net there. And overall, Warlock just has really good base stats, man. Like, everything is like slightly above average. So yeah, he's just a really solid champion. Again, doesn't really need his awakened ability, any team synergies to be a really good character. You can bring this guy just on his own and he's going to be a great asset to your team and roster. So yeah, I really like both of the new additions this month, man. Warlock and Sunspot are just absolutely banging champions. But then we also do have a demotion this month. You guys have probably already heard, if you follow the MCOC news, that She-Hulk is getting a nerf. She's getting the ability to chain on a heavy attack from a 4 combo removed, and this substantially lowers the value of the champion, because it means that you can't play without utilizing either parry or intercepts now, because you could just play much more aggressively, and She-Hulk is really about that aggressive gameplay in order to stack up and maintain the Furies. However, she still hits very hard. She's still a poison immune champion. She still has the ability to reverse power gain and also regeneration. So there's still some pretty good stuff that she can do. I think she is still, for the most part, a solid gold tier champion, but I don't believe after the nerf, man, it kind of warrants her status in beyond gold tier. But we'll see, man. We'll see with a little bit of time. I think she's still going to be a good option to a lot of fights in this game, including the Act 6 champion. However, you're going to have to be a bit more of a skilled and on-the-ball player and really kind of master those intercepts if you want to see the most out of She-Hulk. But yeah, a bit of a sad demotion there, man, because I love that ability to chain on a heavy from 4 combos. Really popular. And also, we do have a promotion of Kamala Khan, who's been moved up to the low demigod tier. I'm debating whether or not she should go up one further, man, just because I've been really impressed by a lot of Sweden's gameplay in the last month or so from his fully maxed out Kamala Khan. I do think that she ideally needs the awakened ability and also the team synergies, ideally the Captain Marvel Nick Fury one, if you really do want to see the most out of Kamala Khan, because it gives her the armor break, which also gives her the additional bit of utility to counter healing and mitigate healing with the Despair Mastery there. But Kamala, man, she's a hard hitter, poison immune champion. It could again armor break, and also nullify any buff with her special one as well, providing that you do have a few stacks of Fury active. So this can have its uses, man, but there's some really good Kamala gameplay that we uploaded to the channel, Kamala versus Variant 3 Rogue, and also plenty of it on Swedish channel. So I think at the very least she has earned the low demigod tier promotion, with the requirement obviously of her awakened ability, and ideally the team synergies as well, really to beef her up a little bit more. So that is it for the promotions and demotions there. However, I do want to talk about Variant 3 as well that we've had this month, because Variant 3 has pretty much been the tech variant. So in Variant 3, every character that isn't tech has minus 50% attack, so it really gives the tech champions a chance to shine even further, and 3 champions that just really absolutely dominate Variant 3, starting on Spider-Man, especially if you have the full tech team and also the Miles or Kamala synergy for the enhanced special 1 duration. You can just stun lock the absolute living hell out of everything and have a really good time. So Spider-Man Stark, he's a little bit of a cheesy option for Variant 3, but also works really well for so many different matchups just because of the damage output there. Ghost is just insane for Variant 3, man. She just walks all over like 95% of the matchups there, and you can just use her in so many different ways. So even if you got a 4-star Ghost, if you can learn how to play her well, you can absolutely dominate Variant 3. And then we've got Sentinel, who has a crazy node in Variant 3, which pretty much doubles his damage output and also doubles his analysis charge gain as well, and Sentinel's just so insane for like each and every one of the variant 3 bosses. He's so good. So yeah, Sentinel's been getting a lot of love, but on the free-to-play account I did a completion of variant 3 with a 4-star 440 Sentinel and Dark Hawk kind of primarily there, and they put in work, man. Even as 4-star champions, not even fully maxed out, we still got the variant completion. So those two champions have you know, definitely done a lot for me, but also shout out to some of the very high-performing tech champions. We have Star-Lord, also Iron Man Infinity War if you bring the synergy in as well. Warlock, Dr. Octopus is really good for some of the power gain scenarios. Vision is awesome for some of the power control and also double immunity scenarios. Mysterio can be very useful for a lot of the slightly more annoying matchups, and also his passive heal block that isn't a debuff is really good for the regeneration rogue as well. And also a bit of love to Nebula, man. I've seen some popularity on certain fights for Nebula, and she can certainly hit, you know, fairly hard in the right scenario, and also does have the double immunities and shock there. So a bit of love to Nebula as well. But I think that is pretty much it for this month's updates. Obviously, we've had Sunspot and Warlock joining the God tier, some promotions, demotions, and a shout out to some of my favourite tech champions for Variant 3, but also in Variant 3, man, a lot of the Beyond God tier champions, God tier, and also to a certain extent High Demigod tier champions are providing a really good level of value, because there isn't a hard restriction like there is in the first or second variant. So, you know, you're just dealing with the damage penalty in the majority of scenarios. So I've been very interested to see a lot of the gameplay coming out of Variant 3. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think of this month's update to the Marvel Contest of Champions tier list. And if you did enjoy today's video breakdown, please do smash that like button. That'd be greatly appreciated. But aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.